no longer have my Xbox in the office.
Ah.
Yep. So it is still classified in the API. Unfortunately, I can't even read it from my phone.
Oh man.
So we're gonna have to save that for when we come back. Hopefully, it'll be unlocked here in 2 weeks. But it's okay. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do another piece from the same book, from the Quintessence lore book. We're gonna kind of do these out of order as a result. But I want to read this one. We've had some questions about Saint and Osiris. I've had a lot of my friends asking me what's going on with Osiris, what's Saint doing during this storyline, etc. And I think this really provides an interesting insight into that for us, what Saint's daily life is kind of like right now. So let's go ahead and jump into it. It's not something super in depth. I don't think there's a whole lot to break down here, but
That's fine. I like Saint.
I love the lore pieces that we've been getting in the season still, because they're a nice break from the action. It's not like super dense, but it adds so much to the story and kind of hints at future storylines too, I think.
Yeah.
So this is from Quintessence. It's page number 2, Devotion. You brought your own cup? Devrim smiled awkwardly after asking this question. A tea set balanced delicately beside him on the split log he used as a seat. From the other side of the campfire, Saint-14 looked comically oversized as he cradled a blue and white ceramic teacup in one large hand. His helmet was off, set in the dirt beside his feet. A slow smile crept across Saint's mouth as he looked at the cup. Not that I mind, Devrim continued and motioned with his own teacup. It's just, normally people don't come this prepared for afternoon tea. Although yours looks like it's seen a few fights. Though Devrim chuckled, his assessment was accurate. Saint's teacup was chipped around the brim. The handle had been broken off at one point and crudely glued back into place. Saint laughed to himself. It is a memento, he said. The cup is nothing special, just ceramic and paint. But it is the damage that makes it important. He finished his tea and offered the cup out to Devrim, who carefully took it to inspect. I forget where I got it. Sat on a shelf in my home long before Osiris and I lived together, before he was exiled. One day he barges into my home looking for an argument, Saint said, watching Devrim. Osiris. He gets very heated when he is angry. Arms like this. Saint waved his arms around in pantomime. Very animated. Devrim laughed as he handed Saint's teacup back. That sounds about right. We argue, very loud. He accidentally knocks my teacup off shelf, breaks it, Saint said, lowering his voice. The argument stops. We both feel bad. Osiris apologizes. I apologize. Then Saint stares into the fire. Then he touches my cheek. His eyes say things that words cannot. He leaves. I sweep up the shards, and Saint's voice trailed off into nothingness. The amusement left Devrim's eyes as he looked down at the rippling surface of his tea. How is he? It was the question Devrim had been too afraid to ask. Saint's shoulders slouched in response, and that was almost all the reply Devrim needed. Not good, Saint quietly confessed. He is alive, but his body is there, his mind is not. It is like he is on a journey and cannot find his way home. Or... Saint shook his head. He honestly wasn't sure. No one was. Devrim set his teacup down on the log. He rose and crossed the distance to Saint and then laid a hand on the tightened shoulder. Devrim looked into Saint's vibrant mechanical eyes with sympathy. Mark and I are having Soraya over for dinner tonight, he said with a small hesitant smile. I know it's short notice, but you should come. Saint looked away. I shouldn't. I should be with Osiris in case Osiris has many people waiting by his side tonight. He isn't alone. You shouldn't be either. Devrim pressed as he let his hand slip away from Saint's shoulder. Dinner, please. Saint stared down at the chips in his teacup and fell deeper into the memory of that day. He would give anything to be able to live it all over again, to have Osiris by his side, to have something as simple as the touch of a hand on his cheek. But that day isn't today. Okay, Saint whispered, and it may not be tomorrow either. These lore books, like we've said, we talked about Survivor's Epitaph last year with Shax and Mithrax. We talked about Empty Vessel with Saladin and Savathun. We talked about how Savathun was looking through the eyes of the Ahamkara skull above Shax at Zavala, and we get all these side stories in the lore that I think they would feel kind of strange to see, like, afternoon tea play out in Destiny. But in the lore, it makes perfect sense. It makes sense in these lore books that you earn just from doing things in game, just from listening to these messages, because this is something that I think is important for us to understand where Saint is when they inevitably bring Osiris back in. You'll have this backstory now if you've gotten engaged in, in reading these pages and understanding these backgrounds and motivations. And I think it'll make those moments all the sweeter. That's very much what happened with the Crow and Saladin resolution this week. Is we knew last season from the Saladin lore that we read and we spent a lot of time on in the fall, that he was mentoring Crow and looking out for him. They were both Zavala's emissaries to the Cabal, and Saladin very much took him under his wing as he once did us. And it, obviously in a much closer way, but it's almost fitting that Devrim is the one talking to him. We know that, this is kind of like meta commentary, I think, in a lot of ways. We know originally they had planned for, in Destiny 2, the writers had for Devrim to be gay. And we know that was eventually vetoed by Bungie and Activision senior leadership. The game wouldn't be able to release in certain countries. And so they just kind of made a passing reference to Mark. And everyone was like, oh my God, great representation, this and that. And it had been hinted for so long. It had become kind of a fan theory that Saint and Osiris were romantically involved. And then they outright confirm it last year or the year before, I can't remember which one, when Saint comes back, and it's like, oh my God, it's this incredible thing. It's this storyline that, now we're getting to see evolve.
Yeah, because the original intent for Saint and Osiris, like you said, they were supposed to be together, but then the lore started referring to them as a father and son figures to each other, and then as it progressed, and now we have Saint back, and now they're together obviously now, but I remember all that. And Devrim was a big deal. People were really happy, and I'm like, I don't remember them ever really saying that except for that passing.
So I see this very much as a meta commentary on that in a lot of ways, that Saint and Devrim are the ones having this conversation. It's outright confirming some things that, have been alluded to for a while in the lore. And it's one of those quiet, special moments that we've come to appreciate in the lore, and that I think reflects a change, not just a changing workplace, but a changing industry, that's much more embracive of that. Right. Yeah. I love seeing this. It's great. I mean, in comparison to the other stories that we get in this book, I'm not going to say that they're bad, but I think that's, for me, that and Crow's Piece are definitely the highlights of the 5 pages in this book so far. We've got 4 of the 5 right now. But this and Acts of Mercy, I mean, it's continuing that great deep Saladin lore. I had the feeling the same person keeps writing these lore pages, and I really want to know who it is. Yeah. So I can just I would just love to pick their brain. You're doing stuff that probably 80% of players are never going to see or read, if not more. Or they'll only hear about it through a Bife video or through something like, Lore Corner. I think that passages like this are the key argument for why you should go read the lore. It's one thing if it's really cryptic, like the Rourke lore from Vowed Disciple. It's another thing when it's just laid out here for you. And hey, these are characters you're familiar with that you're and that we're going to be building up in these seasons. You just spent, a couple seasons with Saint trying to fix this shit. You saw the Legend of the Saint, him and Mithrax becoming buddies. You rescued him in Season of the Dawn. He was part of Season of the Lost. He was there with you as an NPC, popping a permanent bubble for you while you did the exorcism. These are all things that we've wanted to see for so long with these NPCs and with these characters. And when you can flesh them out more in a way that would be really hard to do in an actual FPS, I think that's the most rewarding thing. Yeah. That makes those moments so much sweeter when you get the payoff.
Yeah. And you start to care about these characters more. I care way more about these characters because of the lore, not because of what you see of them in game. Right. I mean, imagine looking at Shaxx or Saladin or even Saint at points, you're like, oh, what's your purpose here? If you didn't know any of the lore,
Right. I mean, they've successfully made me care about other characters. Saladin, like, I said earlier today, like, Saladin's a character I didn't really care about until I started reading the lore. I think Mara is another character. When you read the lore, like, you get super invested in Mara's journey. Like, she's already an interesting character, but you learn so much more about her. Drifter, for God's sake. I mean, God, you want to talk about somebody, him and Elsie. You learn so much through the lore books about them and through the supplementary materials. And, like, I don't ever want this to turn into a game that, like, you have to do the reading. But it's like one of those, it's kind of like when we were all in school and, well, you can get away with just doing the bare minimum and you can get like a B on the assignment. You want to get that A+ on this university paper, you're going to have to do the supplementary readings too. That's like the best way I can describe it is this is the non-required reading, but you're going to be happy you did it.
Yeah. It's like the Silmarillion to the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, pretty much.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, this is, I would almost compare it to like J.R.R. Tolkien's Book of Unfinished Tales or the Histories of Middle Earth. I really think that like the lore books and the Grimoire anthologies really kind of play into that too, the way that they're structured.
Yeah, the Grimoire anthologies are great, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait for number 5 to get announced. But Corey, do you have anything else to add on Devrim? It was nice to see Devrim back. We haven't seen him in a long time.
I know.
Kind of forgot that he exists up there in that tower, looking like a hobo.
Yeah, still up there.
Still up there using No Land Beyond.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on him?
Won't come down.
Saint?
Won't go to the tower. Just.
Nope, he can't even be bothered to go for. Like, dude, we have to go to the EDZ to see him. He won't even go there for Saint.
Yeah.
He's making Hawthorne come out there. Dude, she doesn't have a ghost. She can't just, like, teleport there?
Yeah.
Does Hawthorne have a ship? That's my question.
She has that bird.
That fucking bird. I hope we shoot the bird.
I hope
Corey, get us out of here before I commit more violence against NPCs.
I hope that's a storyline. Everybody's losing their ghost. She loses her bird.